The reality of gaps between my thoughts and actions just slaps me occasionally across my face. Do we have gaps in our thoughts, words, actions? Do our thoughts align closely with our words and in turn with our actions? And if they don't align, is it because we lie to ourselves? Is it because we lie to others? Or is there some intrinsic cause for misalignment within our own little rotten world? Why is this important? If it doesn't matter to you whether your thoughts and feelings align with your words, and that your words in turn align with your actions, you can stop watching right here. The sound of your gaps echoes in your brain. I don't have any gaps. Is your inner scientist quarreling with your inner artist and you can't decide who is right? Who is taking over your imagination routinely? Does your imagination resemble a 3D painting or science fiction movie set? There's your answer. Is your inner pessimist the predominant voice inside your head? Do you allow your pessimist to live in your words as well? Or maybe you want to appear joyful and upbeat, so you allow nobody but the inner optimist to live in your words, despite the pessimistic dialogue. Careful, emotional dissonance detected. Who's in charge of your fantasies? Your inner artist, scientist, your pessimist, your optimist? I'll tell you who's in charge in my head, in my words and actions. Not that it's particularly exciting, but it might motivate you to go through the painful exercise of identifying your own gaps in thoughts, words, and actions. I'm sure that's what you're dreaming of. Anyway, holes, holes, holes. Thoughts. Who's in charge of my thoughts and decisions? Ready for a round of cognitive dissonance this time? On a regular day, sunny or rainy, my inner optimist is my internal voice. It transpires in my words and in my actions. I exude the can-do attitude from a mile away, and I like to smile. Thank you very much. If it is one of those bad days, the inner pessimist takes over, but not for long. My inner artist revels in sadness, swims in it, takes over. It's always at the edge of a mood that I find inspiration and meaning, if you know what I mean. However, my inner scientist and observer won't let the artist swim in tears for too long. They want to understand why I'm sad. They operate rationally, methodically. The 5 whys reports, if you're an agile coach or something. The scientist and observer require answers and lessons learned rather than wallowing in self-pity. I respect them. They are the voice of reason, pun intended. They help me come out of a rut. While in the rut, the actor in me stretches a smile for others' benefit, but sometimes I let myself be sad and show it. Go authenticity. Funnily enough, the inner protagonist who's in charge in my head changes depending on the country I live in. How crazy is that? When I was a student in France, my inner pessimist and observer were always debating some topic or other. French collective psychologie. Obviously, I was a medical student and then a science major in France, so the scientist was always around, thank God, trying to align some pessimistic data. However, my inner artist, actor, and pessimist were the most in their element in France. Ben oui, bien sûr. Then I went to the US as a young professional. It was always the optimist at the forefront of the controls and my life decisions there. And frankly, I felt the most in my element in California. I was a young researcher working on some cutting-edge biotech. Obviously, the scientist and the optimist ruled my cognitive grounds on steroids, or maybe other hormones. Then I lived in India. It was my inner observer and optimist, yours truly, who ruled predominantly there. Are Baba, they had to. I was meditating for hours. In Eastern Europe now, it's often my inner pessimist and artist who decide, and I don't hold it against them. And stick around. Things get much stranger. Who's in charge of my fantasies and dreams? My inner artist and optimist like to fantasize together. It's bombastic pairing, I find. The psychedelic chemistry goes like this. My inner artist paints beautiful worlds and adventures in my head. Brave knights in shining armor rescue me from myself. The plot is obviously written by yours truly, the eternal optimist. One is allowed to dream. Thank you very much. I often fantasize about countries, hustles, projects. Overall, it's the same movie genre playing in my head all the time. A romantic comedy or an adventure comic series. Words. My life is so much more interesting in my head, just like yours, I assume. Obviously, one must filter all this nonsense because when it comes to words, it's actually the inner scientist or observer who are the acceptable voiceovers of my dreams and fantasies, since I work in a corporate environment. However, privately, among family, I let my inner optimist loose. It cannot do much damage. My family are already privy to my castles and knights in shining armor. Actions. Almost everything I do is directed by the inner optimist, though the pessimist stays in its shadow, constantly reminding me about rules, faults, and acceptable thresholds. Our legacy of being born in communist times. I hope this video illustrated adequately the discrepancies between the driver of my thoughts, the driver of my words, and the driver of my actions. And then I think to myself, I'm such a coherent human being. Conclusion. Who's in charge of your fantasies and dreams? Your inner artist, scientist, optimist, pessimist? Who's in charge of your words? Who's in charge of your deeds? Do your thoughts align closely with your words? And your words in turn align closely with your actions? Or is imagination getting in the way? This was a little exercise in uncovering my own Johari window and hopefully yours. It goes like this. We have 4 quadrants, and they are not necessarily the same size as they are portrayed here. We have the open self, the blind self, the hidden self, and the unknown self. The open self is known to others and to self. The blind self is known to others but unknown to self, ironically. The hidden self is unknown to others but known to our own selves. And then there is the big black void, the unknown self, the part of ourselves that we don't know and that others don't know about ourselves either. Oh my gosh, I love the Johari window. What? Your trains of thought were derailed during this video? No survivors? No thoughts left? Well, this might be evidence that we do have gaps in our thoughts, words, and actions.